Hey there, Griff Hamlin here from Blues Guitar Unleashed. Welcome, thanks for joining me. In today's video, we're going to talk to you about a lick from the major blues scale. We're going to talk a little bit about the major blues scale in general. But first, in case you don't know what a major blues scale is, let's just compare it, right? We're used to, I'll say, the minor blues scale, which we play as a root. It's a flat third, it's a fourth, it's a fifth, it's a flatted seventh, it's a root. We might have a blue note in there, which we call the flatted fifth. A little bit of theory, not too much. The major blues scale is different. We have a root, we have a second, we have a third. There can be a flatted third, which is a blue note. We have a fifth and we have a sixth. They are not the same scale. So a major blues lick will mostly come from the major blues sound. Now, there's a really important thing, I'll say, from a theory concept about this. The one and only note that gets to determine if any chord or any scale is major or minor is the third. So you'll notice that in the minor blues scale, we have a flatted third, which is often called a minor third. And in the major blues sound, we have a major third. That actually goes with the chord a little better. When you're playing over an A7 chord, for example, you have a major third in there. So that's why we like the major blues sound. The minor blues sound, while it's, kind of the staple, it's the classic, blues sound, it's actually not the most perfect fit. And I've done videos about this before. It works, we like it, we use it, it's great. But if you want to add just that hair of sophistication to what you're playing, you'll start to incorporate the major blues sound. So here's the shape. Let's start with the shapes. Let's start with what I'm using. Now for the major blues sound here, I'm using what's commonly called box one, but I'm not using it in the way that you're used to seeing it. You'll notice that my pinky is on the root. Okay, so you might be familiar with this shape, but you're familiar with it as a minor blues scale. We're using it as a major blues scale. Now, you'll hear of a thing called the 3-fret rule. I don't like the 3-fret rule because that makes you think about this as your root. This is not your root. This is the 6th. So please don't think of it that way if you can stand it. Please think about this being your root, the second, third, the fifth, the sixth, the root, the second, the third, the fifth, the sixth, the root. Sorry. Right? And again, if we add in that blue note, it's the flatted third. Right? Now, what's going to happen is I'm going to need the minor blues sound as well. Here's the thing about, I'll say, major blues licks, is a lot of times they will pull in a note or two from the minor blues sound as well. If I do as many people will do, and I sort of turn the whole thing around to get the minor blues sound, I'm not going to be able to be playing my major blues sound here and then all of a sudden just pull in a note or two all the way over here. Like, that's super clunky. Okay, so we have to know where to play the major blues sound and the minor blues sound without changing position. And in this case, that's going to be box 5. So notice that my root is still on that A. I'm still on, I'll say, the headboard side. I call this a left-facing pattern, if you've heard me use that terminology before. It's on the same side of the root, generally speaking, and it's in the same area of the fretboard. So the notes that are shared, right, the root and the fifth, for example, they land in the same space. And again, if I add in that blue note, it's going to be a little different because it's the flatted fifth and not the flatted third. So it's important that you are able to play those shapes. Now you probably already know box 1, many people do. You may or may not be familiar with box 5. You might have to take a little bit of time with that. That's okay. But it's important that you understand and know both for the lick I'm about to show you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and... Okay, so what do we got going on with this lick? Well, we're starting at that root from box 1, major blues sound. Or you could say to yourself, that's the root from the minor blues sound. It doesn't matter because the root's in the same place. We have the 6, that's from the major sound, back to the root, down to the 5th. Again, that could be in both. Now we're gonna grab the 4th, so clearly we're coming out of the minor blues sound. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna bend the minor third, the flatted third, the 5th, which is the blue note in the major blues sound, and we're gonna bend it up a half step. Now sometimes you'll play that one after the other, sometimes you'll slide in. In this case, we're gonna bend it down to the root. We're gonna do a little pull off from the 6th to the 5th, and then we're gonna do a little slide in from the minor third to the major third. I call this bluesifying the third. You're gonna see this everywhere. You'll almost never play the third on its own. Okay, you'll notice I bent up to it here, and here I'm gonna slide into it. And then I'm gonna hit the root. Okay, now if I put this in time, we count these triplets, 1 and 2 and some people say 1 triplet, 2 triplet. I don't care what you say. You can say apples, kumquats, and grapes if you like. Just say something and keep it consistent. 1 and 2. Okay, holding that across that beat, that creates what's called syncopation. I won't talk a ton about the timing of it right now, but syncopation is something that makes blues licks sound cool. So one more time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and gonna do that little pull off, both of those on the 1 count. 1 and 2. One more time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and Now, as you should do with all licks, the first thing you have to do is memorize that. Go back, watch it again, count it out loud, play it slowly as many times as you need to get it memorized. That's the thing you have to do first. If you are trying to read the lick off the page or off the screen while you're trying to learn it, it's not going to work out very well. You have to get this stuff memorized. It doesn't matter how slow you have to go. I counted fairly slowly. You might have to go considerably more slowly than that. That's okay. Go as slow as you have to go to count it out loud. Now, let's check out what this sounds like if I put it just over my looper real quick. I'm just going to put a little groove. 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 1 and. One more time. 1 and. Right, so we have a pretty cool lick. Now the thing about these licks though that come from the major blues sound is that they are completely tied to the chord that's going on right now. So for example, this lick can't be used over the D7 or the E7 in an A blues, okay? The 4 and the 5 chord are different chords. We have a C sharp in particular, the major third. Well, that would be the major 7th of the D7 chord, and I can promise you that's not going to sound pretty. So we have 2 choices. There's 2 things that we can do to this lick when we get to the 4 chord, for example. The first thing, and probably the easiest thing, is just to change it, just to move it. Okay, so I just took it from A to D. Since I know that my first note is a root, I just put it up on a D, okay? Or I could count A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D. Right? Real simple. So if I put a D7 into my looper, and I play this, 4, 1. Works great. Okay, so you should absolutely be able to do that. One of the ways you can practice that, practice it with your eyes closed. It shouldn't matter where you go. 1 and. Except that I forgot the lick because I don't have it memorized, which is another problem. But you get the idea. I could put it anywhere. 1 and. Yeah, I forgot it again. You get the idea. I can put it anywhere and it shouldn't matter, okay? Now, if let's say we get to the E7 chord and we want to do it again, I simply go up. Right? So again, if I put a little bit of E7 into my looper, three, 4, 1. And it works like a champ, okay? So that's an easy way to handle it. You could play this over an entire 12-bar blues. Use the A version over the A, use the D version over the D, use the E version over the E. That's great. But sometimes it doesn't work out so well. For example, the last couple of bars, when we have a turnaround and the chords are changing quickly, and maybe we don't want to have to try to move around the licks a little bit longer than we've got space. Okay, now of course you can shorten the lick, cut off the beginning, cut off the end, do whatever you want to do, just use pieces of it. But sometimes we just kind of minorize the lick. So you'll notice that what I did, I didn't do that little pull up to the major third. Now I kept the 6 because the 6 is unoffensive. It doesn't offend any of the other chords at all. And that low note, that low C, I leave it as a C and go back up to the A. Now, that A at the end is another thing that may or may not be what you want, okay? We're minorizing this lick because of the fact that the chords are changing. So if you're aware of what those chords are, you'll likely want to change that last note. Right? If it was an E, if it was an E chord, or a D chord, or maybe you go up to there, or play a little bit of that chord. There's a lot of different things you could do. The A may or may not be the thing that you want. But notice that if I play this E backing track, right, it works. If I, again, put in some D backing track and play this lick, three, 4, 1. Sounds a little funny at the end, but where this kind of idea really shines is when we have something like a turnaround, where we're doing something like... 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And notice all of a sudden it sounds great. I used an E at the end, knowing that that's the chord that was going on. But even if I don't, it turns into a great turnaround lick. So this is one of those things, like I say, minorizing licks is as much art as science. It's not always the perfect or the ideal thing to do. But as the chords move quickly, it becomes a much, much, much better approach than actually moving the lick to a new spot, okay? So, you got a new lick today. Make sure you try and get this down and get this memorized. I have a course called 50 Major Slow Blues Licks by the Box. This is the first of several new licks that I'm going to be sending out over these next several days in celebration of this course. You absolutely may want to check it out if you like this kind of thing. But we're going to do several licks over the next several days, and I'm going to put them all together into a solo, and you're going to see just exactly how this all works. But if you like this major blues sound, right, and again, this is a slightly more sophisticated sound. You hear guys like Robin Ford, Matt Schofield, and you hear older, I'll say older school players, T-Bone Walker, Chuck Berry, B.B. King. You hear them use the major blues sound, not always in this exact same way, but they definitely use that major blues sound to great effect. If you are more of a straight ahead rock player, I should say this is also the sound that comes up more in like Southern rock or more country styles, Southern rock, or I'll call it jam band music, Allman Brothers, that kind of stuff. You hear a lot of the major pentatonic and the major blues sound there. Obviously, that's not at a slow blues tempo, but the same ideas hold. So if you like that kind of sound, this may be the perfect way to kind of get into getting a stockpile of those licks. And I'll leave a link near this video about that course for you. But I hope, above all else, you'll take some time today, learn this lick, get it under your fingers, get it memorized, so that when you get the next lick, you'll be ready to take it and absorb it and make it part of your vocabulary as well. So as always, I'm Griff Hamlin from Blues Guitar Unleashed. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you soon. Take care.